Is there an emotional distance between Jungkook and Taehyung that ARMY was never meant to notice? And why did one question suddenly make everything feel different? Is something quietly breaking between Jungkook and Taehyung? Or has it always been broken in ways no one dared to name? Before you read further, ARMY, pause for a second and ask yourself this. If everything was truly fine, why does this moment feel so heavy? If you feel the tension too, don't stay silent. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if this story makes your heart race, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of what might be BTS's most emotionally confusing moment. YET.AT first. It didn't arrive like a storm. There was no scandal, no explosive headline, no dramatic announcement that forced the world to stop. It arrived quietly, almost politely, hiding between glances, pauses, and a single question that Jungkook reportedly asked Taehyung. A question so simple on the surface that many missed how deeply it cut. What are you doing with our relationship? That was all. No accusation, no raised voice, no public confrontation. Just a question. And yet, from that moment, ARMY began to feel something shift, like the air in a room suddenly growing colder even though no window was opened. For years, Jungkook and Taehyung's bond has been one of the most emotionally analyzed dynamics within BTS. Fans didn't just watch them, they studied them. Every laugh, every silence, every shared look became part of an unspoken language that ARMY believed they understood. Or at least they thought they did. Because when Jungkook questioned what Taehyung was doing with their relationship, it wasn't just a private moment between two people. It felt like a crack forming in a story millions had emotionally invested in. A story built on warmth, comfort, and a sense of unbreakable closeness. What made ARMY panic wasn't anger. It wasn't betrayal. It was confusion. Confusion is always more frightening than conflict, because conflict has a shape, a sound, something you can point at and say, "This is the problem." Confusion, on the other hand, seeps into everything. After that question surfaced in conversations and interpretations, fans began replaying old moments with new eyes. A laugh that once felt carefree now seemed forced. A silence that once felt comfortable now felt awkward. Even smiles began to look like masks, and that is when emotional distance stopped being a theory and started feeling like a possibility too real to ignore. There is something uniquely painful about realizing that a distance may have existed long before anyone acknowledged it. ARMY didn't just ask what happened after Jungkook's question. They began asking what happened before it. Was this emotional gap something that formed suddenly, or had it been quietly growing while everyone was distracted by schedules, performances, and public images? The most unsettling thought was not that there was distance, but that it was never talked about, never addressed openly, and perhaps never fully understood even by the people living inside it. That Jungkook's question carried weight, because of who he is. Known for his emotional honesty, his tendency to wear his heart openly, Jungkook has often been seen as someone who feels deeply and expresses those feelings through actions more than words. For someone like him to question what Taehyung was doing with their relationship suggested something profound. A sense of uncertainty, maybe even hurt, that had reached a point where silence was no longer enough. And Taehyung, often described as introspective, complex, and emotionally layered, has long been someone who processes feelings internally. That difference alone has always been beautiful and dangerous at the same time. ARMY began to notice what felt like a mismatch in emotional timing. Jungkook reaching out with a question, Taehyung responding not with clarity but with distance, at least from the outside. And that is where panic took root. Not because anyone knew the truth, but because no one did. The absence of answers became louder than any confirmation ever could. Fans weren't just reacting to what was seen, they were reacting to what was missing. The idea of an unspoken emotional distance touches something deeply human. It reminds people of relationships in their own lives where something felt off, but no one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. That is why this moment resonated so strongly. It wasn't about idols on a stage anymore. It was about that universal fear of drifting apart from someone who once felt like home. When Jungkook questioned the state of their bond, it echoed the thoughts many people have but are too afraid to voice, because once you ask, you can never go back to pretending everything is the same. As days passed, ARMY dissected interactions with surgical precision. A lack of eye contact here, a delayed response there. Even moments meant to be lighthearted began to feel heavy under the weight of interpretation. Some fans tried to calm the panic, reminding others that not everything seen is everything that exists. Others leaned into the fear, convinced that something fundamental had shifted. Between reassurance and alarm, one thing remained consistent. The emotional tension was impossible to ignore. What makes this situation even more intense is the absence of a clear narrative. There was no official explanation, no statement to settle the storm. Just fragments, impressions, and that haunting question lingering in the background. What are you doing with our relationship? The more it echoed, the more it felt like a mirror held up not just to Taehyung, but to the entire dynamic that ARMY thought they understood. Was the relationship being nurtured, paused, or quietly neglected under the pressure of growth and change? Time changes people. Fame changes people. And yet, fans often cling to the hope that certain bonds remain untouched by those forces. Jungkook and Taehyung represented that hope for many, a sense that no matter how chaotic the world became, some connections stayed pure. That is why the idea of emotional distance felt almost like a betrayal of a shared dream. Not because anyone owed the public perfection, but because the illusion of permanence is comforting. And losing it hurts. ARMY panic wasn't loud at first. It manifested in worried comments, long threads, emotional edits, and quiet late-night reflections. People asked themselves whether they were overthinking, or whether their instincts were picking up on something real. The emotional atmosphere shifted from excitement to anxiety, from celebration to concern. And in that space, every small detail became magnified. The most painful part for many fans was not knowing whose pain was greater. Was Jungkook hurting because he felt uncertain and unheard? Was Taehyung withdrawing because he was overwhelmed, misunderstood, or processing something too complex to explain? Or were both trapped in a moment where love and distance coexist in the most confusing way possible? The lack of clarity turned empathy into worry and worry into fear. This is where the story stops being about blame and starts being about vulnerability. Emotional distance doesn't always come from a lack of care. Sometimes it comes from caring too much, from being afraid to say the wrong thing, from not knowing how to bridge a gap that formed without permission. Jungkook's question may not have been an attack, but a plea. And Taehyung's perceived silence may not have been rejection, but self-protection. Yet without words, these nuances are lost, and what remains is interpretation. ARMY's collective heart has always been deeply intertwined with BTS's emotional journey. When one member appears unsettled, it ripples outward. In this case, the ripple felt more like a slow wave, building momentum as more people sensed that something unspoken was weighing down moments that once felt effortless. The panic wasn't about scandal. It was about loss, or the fear of it. The fear that something meaningful was slipping away quietly. Without a dramatic goodbye. As discussions continued, some fans began to reflect inward. They questioned their own expectations, their own projections. Were they placing too much meaning on a single question? Or was that question a doorway into a truth that had been waiting to surface? The tension between respecting privacy and seeking understanding became sharper than ever. People wanted answers, but they also wanted to protect the people they cared about. What cannot be denied is the emotional impact of this moment. Whether the distance is real, temporary, or misunderstood, the feeling it created is real. It exposed how deeply connected ARMY feels to the emotional states of the members, and how fragile even the strongest perceived bonds can feel when communication falters. Jungkook questioning the relationship wasn't just a personal moment. It became a symbol of every unasked question, every unresolved feeling, every quiet fear of drifting apart. And so the story remains open-ended, suspended in uncertainty.